MG Motors have had a fairly turbulent history over the last few decades. A few financial troubles in there, then bought over by a major Chinese manufacturing giant, bought over again. Now, SAIC Motors are the current owners of the MG brand, and they've been making a car like the predecessor to this, called the Rowe brand over in China, but they decided to slap an EV drivetrain into it and send it off to some international markets. And what we got a few years ago was the MG ZS EV, and it was really well received. People loved it, in fact. The owners rave about it, but everybody admitted it was rough around the edges. The software was pretty crap. You know, the range maybe could have been a little bit better. But they listened. MG listened. They sat around the boardroom and said, right guys, how can we update this? How can we refresh it? And this is what we got. We got the updated 2022 version of the MG ZS EV. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Blake Boland. Let's go have a good look around. So what are we going to notice that's different? Well, the first thing is obviously the closed off grille. It's a nice refresh. There's a few other nip and tucks here and there, slightly different materials, different shape. But in general, this is the big difference here. But we talked about refreshes earlier on and upgrading, listening to their customers. And what do they do? This was one thing here. We've got the charge flap just off center now. A lot smaller, a lot neater, integrated a lot better. Clicks open, but look, actual flaps that open up. None of those little plasticky nozzles that you try to fit back in. And the old Badger would open up and raise like this. It was pretty nasty to use. This is so much better. Not too much has changed from the last one. We've got the propeller wheels here, 16-inch plastic inserts really. I mean, is it the most beautiful piece of design? No, it's not. Is it adequate? Is it absolutely fine? Yeah, probably. A couple of nice little character lines just here stretching along underneath the window frame. Swoops up over the back around to the rear headlights as well. So yeah, not much to say, let's move on. Around the back of the MG, I still think it looks pretty decent. Yeah, I kind of like it. A few little tweaks here and there from the older model. Good size boot in there, not too far off 500 litres. But also, what you can do is change around the height. So there's a big lip there. Now I'm okay with that because I get the extra space, I like it. But if you want to raise up the floor, quite easy to do. Take out that shelf. Charging cables in that little pouch, which is Velcro to the bottom. And then we put it back in at a higher level. And now there's only a tiny little lip just there. Netting to hold in our shopping. 40-60 splits on the seat to fold down. That expanded out to about 1,160 litres. Yeah, good space in there. Nice. Well, inside the MG ZS EV, what do we think? Yeah, looks nice, doesn't it? Looks nice. Now, it is a whole different ballgame compared to the older model, to its predecessor. It's such a step up in quality and appearance and functionality. Yeah, hats off to them for that. Now, but I do have to say, it looks a little bit better than it actually is. So what do I mean by that? Well, lovely cross stitching down along the side, you know, on the seats, on the steering wheel as well. Carbon effect. Materials here on the dash, looks like leather across the dash, the steering wheel, these little perforations, you know, it looks quite nice, bit of chrome here, but then you dig into it and you got, it's just, you know, chrome effect plastic. That's not leather at all. That's kind of a hard plastic. The dash, yeah, it's kind of a rubberized plastic. The chrome effect is actually just a little bit of vinyl material. You know, the buttons are just, yeah, they don't line up perfectly, and then you remind yourself of the price of this car and you go, hey, stop complaining, Blake. Don't be giving out about it. This is really, really good. And I've got a lot of creature comforts in here as well. You know, I can adjust my seat electronically on the upper spec level 1 that we have here today. You know, down, forward, back, stuff like that. Yeah, pretty nice lumbar supports. You know, you've got a smattering of buttons on the steering wheel. 2 displays as well. The digital one, which is upgraded from the predecessor, is so much better now as well. The readouts, it's just clearer, there's more functionality, it looks better. This screen is a lot nicer, the interface is a little bit more interactive now. It's still very much grayscale and tiny bit laggy and stuff. It's, you know, it's a far cry from our Polestar and Tesla. But, you know, yeah, it's nice. So what's it like for space in the back of the MG ZS EV? Well, yeah, it's pretty good. I've got this seat set up for me. I'm 6'2", about 1.88, 1.89 meters, and I can fit in here absolutely fine. I've still got just about enough space for my knee, bit of storage in the pocket at the back. I've got 2 heated vents, USB connections here, nice little armrest, 2 cup holders in that. Got electric windows. Yeah, like it's enough. Now the seat, it's grand, the materials are kind of okay, but they're good. You know, if you're using this as a young family taxi driver, you know, your baby smushes some food into it, you just wipe it off, it's absolutely fine. But the great thing is the sense of space in here, because we've got that panoramic roof. Glass all the way back to just behind my head right here. Yeah, it feels really good. Panoramic sunroof, check this out. That goes all the way back. Sunroof itself is 1.9 meters squared. So plenty of space up there as well, which we can open up here, all electronic. And there goes the roof. And it just feels so much more airy because of that. Like it. So what's it like to drive the MG ZS EV? Well, for me, I want to break it down into a few different categories because it's hard to give a, an overall impression of this. The first one, let's move on to the motor. Let's talk about that first. It's a 115 kilowatt motor. Now that's good for 156 horsepower and 280 Newton meters of torque. So it's no slouch, it's not going to be setting any records, but I'm happy enough with it. In this kind of a car, it's plenty. It doesn't need any more. It really doesn't. It would be wasted. In fact, if you gave it more, the traction just couldn't keep up with it. I've already done a few wheel spins in this kind of damp and wet weather. Yeah, so plenty there. Let's move on then to the tech and what it's like inside the car. And it's okay. Let's just say it's okay. Relatively speaking, there's much nicer cars out there with much better tech, much more integrated software. But you get most things that you want here. We've got Android Auto, CarPlay. The interface is a bit grayscale and it's a tiny bit laggy and stuff, but it's fine. I can do everything I want. As long as I accept that when I press the temperature up or something like that, it takes a half a second, but that's all right. As you're driving around, you've got some, MG Pilot. They're quite proud of this software, this package, and it's driver assistance functions basically. So we've got adaptive cruise control with blind spot monitoring. The light comes up on the wing mirror over here when something's coming up behind you. And it's functional. I've had this car on the motorway for 50 or 100 miles since I've had it, and it works fine. It's a little bit jittery at time. The lane keep assist kind of pulls you the odd time that you don't think it should, but overall it's okay. But then how does it feel to drive? You definitely got to break this down into two parts for me anyway. There's the high-speed driving on motorways, so you're 60, 70, even 80 miles per hour driving, and you've got your adaptive cruise control for that. So it makes it quite a comfortable, and it just takes a little bit of the stress out of it, I think, I find anyway. And it's comfortable on the roads. You got small 16-inch wheels, big squishy tires, and the suspension is quite soft sprung, so it just takes the bumps nice and smoothly. But then what we got to talk about is when you move on to the smaller roads, the back road, the B roads, those country roads where you could be taking a corner at 25 miles per hour and then you come up behind a tractor and you need to overtake and stuff. You know those kind of roads I'm talking about. And there, this car is not in its element, let's say. It's a little bit lolls around a little bit. You go to take a corner, you turn it into the left and the car just takes a half second and just goes, oh, you just turn the steering wheel there, like, yeah. And then the car leans over, the suspension leans in, and then you get your bit of reaction in the car. So yeah, not quite at home there, but it's absolutely fine. You're not buying a car like this for those at all, for those kind of circumstances. 3 driving modes: Eco, don't use it ever. I want the power there. Normal, and then Sport. I just leave it in Sport the whole time. For me, personally, just don't find it affects the range that much. If you want to drive economically, just don't press the pedal that much. You got KERS, which is MG's version of regenerative braking, I suppose, kinetic energy recovery system, and 3 settings, so 1, 2, and 3. 1 being the lightest, almost freewheeling. 3 is the strongest. I would prefer it to be stronger, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm not going to give out about it. It doesn't have 1 pedal driving, and it's starting to become a standard now. We've seen it in the Nissan Leaf for a while. I had it in the Honda E. Of course, a lot of the more expensive cars are doing it as well. But you can't really give out about that at the price point that the car is at. But overall, look, this is going to be used to move the kids around, pick up the shopping, things like that. It'll do you nicely. So we're nearly finished up with the MG ZS EV, but there's one last thing that I want to tell you about, and that is battery and charging. So we're looking at a 72.6 kilowatt hour battery, about 69 of which is usable. In terms of range, what's that's going to get you? Well, WLTP is in and around the 270 miles or 440 kilometers, something like that. But Based on how I've had it now over the last few days, I've put a good few miles into it. I'm tracking for over 400 kilometers. Like, I think this thing in summer, you know, pottering around town, a few little trips through the country and stuff like that, that's going to hit the 300-mile mark if you're careful. Like, absolutely fantastic range, and the efficiency for something this size is pretty good. In terms of charging it, on DC, you're going to peak at in that kind of mid-70s range. On AC, it gets a little bit trickier. You can get this in 11 kilowatts on the continent, but in the market that I'm in, they're just not supplying it. They're saying, no, you're getting your 7.4, and that's it. But also, we got to mention V2L capability. Now, I wasn't given the adapter, that's not available yet, but you can plug an adapter into it and draw power back out at 2.2 kilowatts. So you can, you know, power up little mini ovens, or you possibly even charge it at another car. It's a lot, you know, run power tools off it, things like that. But what do we think about the MG? You know, I really like it. Like, no, first of all, let's go with the negatives, because there's a good few things I don't like. The design, you know, is it fantastic? No, it's not great really. That front collision warning sound, and it's a bit annoying. Like, the feel of the materials inside isn't great. The software, it's still a bit laggy and a bit grayscale, doesn't look great, although much improved from the old one. So yeah, there are negatives about this, but then you got to remind yourself of the price and what you get for the money. Look at the range. The ride is okay. The space inside is a good sized boot. I'm massively impressed by it. But I don't want to finish on that as me saying, yeah, it's a great car, go out and buy it. What I want to say, it's more of a conversation piece, and it's that this car is a shot across the bow to the major manufacturers that are charging a lot of money for EVs when possibly they shouldn't be. This car is half the price where I am of a nicely spec'd Audi Q4 e-tron. You compare it to the VW ID4, the bigger battery version, or even Skoda Enyaqs and things like that, and it's so much cheaper. MG are coming into the market. They're saying, yeah, we're going to give you all those things. Might not feel as nice, but we're going to give you all those things, all those specs at such a low price. Biggest problem that MG are going to have is satisfying demand, I think. Anyway, thank you very much for watching today. If you've enjoyed this video, if you enjoy our other videos, hit like and subscribe, because it tells our bosses that you like what we do and we get to make more videos like this. Thank you very much.